Good morning. It's Monday morning. Happy November. Hey, can you believe it? It's already November, and where I live, it's thinking about snowing out here in California, which we really need. So here we are for your Momo. Happy Monday. You're going to start your week out just fabulously because you decided to join us. And we're going to talk today about learning styles. So a few weeks ago, we talked about introverts and extroverts. We've spent some time talking about the importance of continuous learning. And now today we're going to talk a little bit about the different ways that people learn. And the reason that this topic came up is because I've been learning something new and fun, and it's part of the reason that we've been doing pre-records. If you've noticed that we haven't been live the last couple of Mondays, we will be soon, but just right now we're not. And that's because I'm learning how to I'm learning how to drive a bus. I'm getting my commercial driver's license so I can drive a bus as a part-time winter job here where I live in the ski resort town. And it's been a big adventure and a not so easy adventure sometimes. And you guys remember all that cool stuff about learning and how good it is for us to keep doing it. It keeps our brains alive. So I promise you my brain is a lot more alive now than it was a week ago after what I've been doing. But while I was going through this, I was really struck by the differences that happened while I was trying to learn these things. Because one of the things that I had to learn is the entire, come on, Sarah, steering system on this bus. So I had to learn that there's the steering box, and then there's something called a pitman arm that attaches to it, and then there's the drag link, and then there's a tie rod, and then there's a steering knuckle, and this is how you get the tires to go round and round after you do this, this, this. And I couldn't learn those terms. I couldn't, they were just words. They didn't mean anything to me at all, and I have to know them. I have to be able to spew them out just like that for my test. And it wasn't until we cracked open the hood and looked at the things that then I could remember them. And that's a visual learning style. And I don't know, I've never been really certain what my learning style is because I've been studying them for a while. But it was clear to me that at least for learning about the parts of the steering system on a big giant bus, I'm very visual, and I tell you, every time that I have to recite that list, I can see the pitman arm in my head. Whatever the heck a pitman arm is and why it's called pitman, I don't know, but I can tell you I got a picture of it in my head, and that's an example of visual learning. So, as I said, I was going through that this week, and I was sort of observing my own learning, and I thought, well, this would be a great topic, because I know that both James and Linda have spent time with me at CEO Space, where we love to go, and we learned a lot about learning styles and the different ways that people learn and the impact that it can have on your business. So that's what we decided to share with you all today. And for me, anyway, the first time that I learned about learning styles was probably back in graduate school, 20, maybe 30 years ago now. I'm not so sure how long it's been. And Howard Gardner was the man that I first learned about, who had decided that we all learn in different ways. And if you don't know that, if it's news to you, take a look at some of the work he did, because initially he had three or four learning styles, and now it's up to like 25 or something. It depends on how you study it and how you look at it, but there's lots of different ways that we learn, and as we've learned more about that as a society, we've done a better job of figuring out ways to educate children who may not learn in the same way as the teacher who's teaching them. And we learned how important it is for us in our work environment and all relationships as well to understand that everybody's brain is not exactly the same, and we take in information, process it, absorb it, and use it in different ways. So the other cool thing is it's all three of us again, James and Linda and Sarah. Yay! So I'm going to have Linda introduce herself. Maybe you've got a tidbit about learning styles you want to share, and then pass it on over to James, and we'll get started. So yay! Happy Monday.
All right. Hi there. It's Linda Kay, Interactive Synergy. And boy, learning styles. When I was in grade school, I can remember we used to have to sit there and memorize this seemingly useless stuff over and over and over. Rote learning. You know, I never really got the hang of it. So My learning style is definitely I got to jump in there and do something with it. Because just seeing something over and over again, hearing something over and over again, doesn't always cut it for me. So, James, how about you? How are you learning?
Oh, goodness. Good morning, everybody. This is a very interesting topic right now. I've had recent experiences on this, but I've always been a very visual learner. If I can't see it, if it's not tangible, it just doesn't stick in my brain. So with what you've said there, Sarah, it really kind of clicked in for me that I think not just learning, understanding what our learning style is, but understanding all of these learning styles, I think would help us in that process of training employees, training or working with contractors, whatever that might be. So I shared this with Sarah earlier this week that I was really looking forward to this topic because it's not a strong point as far as my knowledge of it, but the experiences that I had this week I think are pretty significant in kind of guiding me to think about this in different terms. So I think it's going to be a good topic to cover, and we'll have some great insight here. So it's good to be here. It's good to be back. It's good to be together. So.
Yay, James! Thank you. So it sounds like for Linda, kinesthetic is one of the terms that there are many different systems, as I said before, for learning styles. And I'll share a picture on my screen in a minute. But it sounds like Linda figured out at some point in her life that if you don't let me touch it and play it with it, manipulate it, move it around, I'm a lot less likely to actually be able to learn about it. And that's a real challenge. And a lot of the kids that had gotten into trouble when all of us were going to school were the ones that needed to move in order to be able to learn, the kinesthetic learner. And our school system is pretty much not set up for that, except for at PE, though it's better now than it was, like I said, back in the Stone Age when we were all in school. I think what I remember about school is that it's mostly visual and verbal, and people either are looking at things like the blackboard or the book in front of them learning to read, or they're speaking a lot, and so there's not a lot of space for the person that needs to move. And thank goodness we figured this out so that those kids that really need to move have a chance to do that, and teachers can build it into their plans. And James, for you, visual, you said you need to be able to see it. Did you ever notice that in school that made a difference for you, or did school go well for you?
No, that's the thing is if I was there in class, I loved math. Math was one of my favorite subjects, literally, up until probably the middle of the 11th grade. And we were getting into the advanced maths, and I remember, and I can't remember what they called it back then, but we were getting into a lot of those different math type processes where memorizing all of these different concepts was important, so that you knew what, if you were. But and here's something I learned recently, and I don't want to deviate too far, but I recently read this article that was trying to explain this new Common Core process for learning, which I know a lot of people, including myself, have been very concerned about. And it was explained in a way, I read this, and I don't normally read an entire article, but I read this entire article, and all of a sudden this whole concept behind Common Core and why these weird different ways of looking at math and everything was being taught. And it is being taught in a more analytical way, in a more logical way, and specifically because, and this was what the article was saying, the difference between equal and equivalent are two different things. Something that could be equal doesn't necessarily mean it's equivalent. And that's what really caught my eye when I read this. And but it was this process of visually seeing the step-by-step and explanation that all of a sudden gave me my aha moment. And I've always known I'm very visual. If I see someone do something on a chalkboard, I could go and do that same thing on paper a dozen times. If I see or hear, and auditory is the same way, a piano piece or a musical piece, it only takes me a few times on the piano before I can play it if I've heard it enough. But what I came to understand about this whole process behind math and Common Core was they're teaching they're almost teaching advanced principles, but at the lower levels. Because when you get into computer science, the difference between 5 times 3 and 3 times 5 is important. And just seeing that breakdown, all of a sudden it made complete sense to me, and I thought, okay, so why haven't they told us from the very beginning? The reason why we're teaching math this way is so that the kids, when they go into computer sciences, are prepared for computer sciences. And I thought, that just seems so simple. Why don't you just say that? But it was that process of visually seeing the breakdown and the explanation that all of a sudden it was like, okay, now I don't have a problem with it, at least not in math right now. But
Yeah, well, thank you. And that's very, well, I can't make myself, I'm stuck.
you're there.
There I am. Well, I couldn't, well, I'm showing you my screen before I was ready, but we'll do it anyway. So this is something that we dug up a little while ago when we were preparing for our call today, and it's from a company named Memletic. So it's just an example for your viewers out there to see the different styles that this company has decided that there are. And it, again, you know, it's a continuum. People are different in so many different ways, but when you can sort of begin to separate the ways that people learn, you can learn how to help them maximize their strengths, so that, you know, what James was just talking about, if somebody had drawn a picture for him or a diagram way back, he would have figured it out a lot sooner. And for me, the day that they opened up the engine and let us see the parts was really, I think it was the third day. After that, I could learn it. You know, before that I was babbling words, but that's not something that you really retain very long. And so that was this visual style we're talking about. And all these other styles you can see, oral is auditory, physical is the same thing as kinesthetic, verbal, they need to hear and talk in order to learn. Logical is probably similar to the digital style. These are people that are very ordered and love numbers. You'll get together with them and they'll like be able to tell you how many corners they passed, or street signs, or house numbers on the way to your house, or they'll hear a phone number one time and they'll remember it forever, and you're like, huh? I mean, maybe you guys are like that, but I'm not like that, and it's really weird to me. But that's the more logical brain. And then there's two things in the middle. Linda and I spent some time talking about introversion and extroversion, and that's what this is reflecting as well. Solitary learners are people that learn better on their own. Social, they learn better in a group. And so that's just an example for you. I'm going to share another page in just a minute. It's going to take me a minute to figure out how to get my face back. There it is. So, you know, why does this matter for business? What's the deal? Why do we care? Why are we spending time talking about it? Do either of you have something scintillating you would like to say, or should I just pontificate? Why would it matter what your team's learning styles are?
You know, Sarah, I was in a training session or something or other a while back, and they were talking about the different learning styles. And when someone is faced with trying to recall something, they might either, you know, search their brain left to right, or they might look up and search their brain up there. And that was a clue to their learning style.
Mm-hmm.
Because if people were searching right to left, it's kind of like where the ears are.
Yeah, sure.
And the auditory learners, and those people that were looking up, you know, into the brain or whatever it is, they're visual learners. They're trying to imagine it. So, you know, when you're working with somebody in business or anything else, and they're trying to grasp a concept, you know, you might want to pay attention to the visual clues that they give. You know, are they looking left to right or up and down.
And that's a great example of it. There's lots of clues for the learning styles like you just gave. You know, people that are visual learners often say or use words like see, look, visualize, picture. They use visual words as they explain things. And people that are auditory say, did you hear that? Did you know, what does that sound like to you? They use those auditory words. So that's a great way to find out, you know, what kind of learner might this be if you learn those clues. But again, I want to ask you, why do you think it matters? I mean, wouldn't it just be fine to have a team of people that are all the same learning style as you? And then what about your customers? What about their learning styles? Any?
Well, just something you said made me think about our conversation last week, and that just goes to show you how important it is to listen and to pick up on those cues. I've thought about this in the past, but I haven't thought about it for a long time. I was probably 20-ish, mid-20s. There was this little kid that I was living with some friends for a little while, and their littlest son, or my friend's littlest brother, every time you would ask him a question, he would pause, and he would look up. But it was just the strangest thing. And knowing him now, he was very logical. He's a very logical-minded person. And so he wasn't just going to answer my question. He wanted to make sure that anything that he shared or an answer he gave me was in that fit that logical process. And I always remember that the way he would give this look literally made me kind of wait on pins and needles for whatever that answer might be. And here's this 8, 9-year-old kid that I would have these amazing adult conversations with. So I appreciate you saying that, because it really kind of makes me think of the importance of listening to those cues, something I haven't done in the past. But to go to the heart of that question, if we all thought the same, if we all learned the same, I think there would be a lot that we would miss. Am I still?
Your camera. Okay, so.
Yeah, everybody's frozen on my end, so.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I don't know if you're. Well,
So-
let me.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think maybe, you know, switch your camera on and off and see if it helps you. And I'm hoping that what you were going to say is something like, you know, learning to read those signals can help you to make sure you're communicating in the right way so that that person can hear you and understand you. And that's what, you know, that's what teachers do now in schools if they've had decent training and have been trained in the last 20 years, because now that we know about these learning styles, they try to build it into the lesson plan, some kind of way to make sure there's some kind of activity at some point so that the kinesthetic learners don't get so bored and so distracted that they aren't participating in learning anymore. Some way to have some visuals, some way to have some auditory, that all of that is built in to keep them engaged. And it's the same message for our customers and for our employees. If Sarah, who she's not sure, but let's just say she's a really visual learner, and you know all you have to do is show her a picture and she's got it and she's off to the races ready to work, well, that's not going to work for everybody on the team. And if Sarah's the boss, she ought to know that so that she can make sure that there's some kinesthetic stuff, there's some auditory stuff, there's some digital stuff, so that those people that need that in order to understand what the task is that we got to get done today are able to understand it and can stay engaged and can learn it. So that's the piece that I wanted to build on a little bit, and I'm going to see if I can get back to you, James. And while you're talking, or Linda, I'm going to see if I can get that other visual up, because I guess maybe I am kind of visual.
I dropped off there for a second, but and I heard what you were saying there as my camera dropped off. But yeah, I think if we all learned the same, if we all thought the same, if we all experienced that the same, I think there would be a lot that we would not learn, that we would not experience, that we would not take into consideration, and therefore the success of that project or that team would be diminished. So it's good to have that diversity in that process.
Linda, how about you? Have you noticed that in some of the work you said, you learned some of the clues. Have you ever used those clues to help you?
Absolutely have to use those clues, because what I do now is after I build a website for a client, I train them on how to take control of the website themselves and how to learn how to make updates and to add new content, change things around. And some clients, it's very, very difficult for them if I'm sharing a screen with them or not sharing a screen with them, if I'm just explaining to them, or if I'm actually having them take over and do it. And understanding their style really is helping me get them trained a lot quicker and getting them to be able to feel empowered to take over control of their website. So it's really cool to zone in on what their learning style is and don't waste a lot of time trying to teach them in a way that they don't learn.
Mm-hmm. And most people, well, many people don't know their own style, so you having clues helps to teach them in a way that they don't need to be able to say to you, I'm a kinesthetic learner. You can figure it out and help them that way and get the mouse in their hand as soon as possible. So I want to share this screen now, and I'm hoping it shows up. This is another example of learning styles or brain thinking styles. And this comes from one of our teachers at CEO Space, Mr. Bill Sturley, who all of us love. I'm crazy about him anyway. And he's, the system that he uses basically has 4 learning styles, and they actually correspond with the 4 lobes of the brain. But they're very similar. You can see some things that overlap. The blue, the problem-solving person, that's more like the digital. The green is someone who needs it very orderly, and that's more in line, I believe, with the auditory. I can't remember now. Yellow, those people see the big visual picture all the time. And the red ones are very social and in relationship and are also very musical. So, what he's always teaching us is that, for instance, a lot of the people that go to CEO Space, because we're entrepreneurs, we're either yellow or we're red or we're both. Very few people that come there are blues and greens. And they're very important to us because we're all over the place. We're entrepreneurs and we see this big vision and we're like, oh, wow, this is the world, and we have all these ideas about what it's going to be doing, but we need somebody to help us do this step by step in the order. We can't just go crazy with our vision. So that balance piece is really important. And I don't know if either one of you remember working with Bill, if you ever saw, oh, that's definitely me or that's definitely not me. I mean, these are just ideas here. It's about leadership, for instance, this particular piece. But what Bill always tells us is that the best CEOs have really all of this stuff going on. And if you don't have all that going on, then you might want to find a CEO to work with you that does. So I'm going to stop presenting this to get my face back. And it's just me right now. I'm not sure what might be going on, but that's Google Hangouts. That's what happens sometimes. Well, James might be back. He's muted, though.
I'm here, sorry.
So this is a good thing. It's my learning style. It's really getting stretched right now, just going back and forth from one screen to another. Do you remember what your colors are with Bill? Did you do that?
I do. Green, red, yellow, green. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Blue, red, green, yellow.
So blue is very ordered and step-by-step and very number-oriented.
Systems.
Very unusual at CEO Space. So you said blue, red,
green, yellow.
Green, yellow. That's really interesting. So that's part of why people need you so much, because all the rest of us are all yellow and red and we all see the big picture, but we're having a hard time getting things done sometimes. And we need people on our team that can say, okay, let's get back to how is this going to happen. The whole mind mapping piece that you brought in for us, same thing. So I'm wondering, Linda, are you there? Or are we just seeing the MM?
That might be lingering for me.
Yeah, that might be you again. Well, then it's just you and me for right now anyway. We'll see if she comes back. So we only have a few minutes left anyway. But I'm wondering if do you have a story? I think you were telling me something earlier about when
Yeah.
with your daughter.
Right. So she's going through some higher level math, and math used to be one of my favorite subjects. But my wife, her mother, is the primary tutor in the house at this time, and so I've never helped my daughter in math, and yet she was having this. It was a pretty significant issue, and I didn't understand one word or anything in this process what they were trying to accomplish. And so I literally went in and kind of started doing some Google searches to see if I could find a tutorial or a video that kind of spoke to this. And I found a video. I started to watch it, and I realized that this is probably going to answer the question. I invited her to come sit with me. She huffed a little bit, but she came and she sat with me, and we watched it. And as soon as, it's kind of like what I was sharing, you know, what I would experience in school when I was younger. If I saw someone do it, then I could do it. And what was interesting is once we understood what these two different terms meant and how they were applied, we literally, both of us, could look at a mathematical equation and right away, without having to go through the long form, we were both seeing the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to match everything up. We were able to, and it literally got to the, you know, after the fifth or sixth one, I was just like literally going, okay, that's that, and that's this, and the solutions were just very obvious at that point. So it was that experience combined with what we were talking about really kind of was another epiphany in this process of just how important for me visual is, and it's even been that way in software development or learning another language. If I can see what it says in English and what it says in Spanish, then and I can read both of them, all of a sudden I know now what to say and how to say it. Now I haven't memorized all of that, but that's how you look at this way of saying it and this way of saying it, and all of a sudden it starts to kind of make sense. And so I've always been very visual, but also auditory in the respects of listening to music or watching a video or hearing, you know, a combination of someone showing and speaking. Put a textbook in front of me, yeah. I won't learn a thing. So.
Well, and that's why this is such wonderful, powerful stuff, because you know, it's horrible for children to be sitting for years on end in a room where they aren't engaged. And you know, we know that there's the same kind of issue with employees, that there's something like 80% of the employees out there are not engaged with their work. Well, one way to get them engaged is to speak to them in a language they understand. And they can not have that frustration of continually feeling like, I don't get what's going on, there must be something wrong with me. You know, that's what happens with children a lot anyway. We're all a little bit older and a little bit wiser and a little more mature, I think. I mean, you know, this is, again, what I experienced this last week is I know I can learn this stuff. You know I am able to learn, but there was some real frustrating times during this, you know, and it's not over yet, but I really was like, wow, I wouldn't want to be 20 years old and not have that faith that we develop over time of, I know I can learn this, I'm not sure how I'm going to learn it, but I know I can, because that's when kids give up. And the same with employees. If they just, you know, are not getting what you're saying, they're likely to not produce very well. And how about your customers? If they don't understand your product that you're trying to explain to them because you're all visual and they're all digital or whatever, they're not going to buy from you. So this is why it's important to understand the styles and to understand how you can bring little pieces of them into your language, even if you are, you know, maybe I'm visual, well, I should throw some numbers out once in a while just to keep the other 25% of you engaged. So we are just about out of time. I'd love to hear if Linda has a story to share. I know she dropped off. I don't know if she could hear us. Any little tidbit you'd like to throw in?
I am back on. Sorry about that. So one of my clients actually is a specialist in communication, and I've learned so much from her recently, and I'd love to bring her on as a guest soon. But she talks about the different buying styles and how to sell to them. So it's a fascinating topic if you know what type of learner, buyer, whatever that other person is, you're going to land the sale so much easier. And it works in sales, and it also works in relationships. So
exactly. That was just like, you're going to have a better life, not just make a sale. All righty. Well, we're just about done for today. So, Linda, why don't you sign out and then pass it over to James, and then I'll roll her up and put her away.
Well, my name is Linda Kay, and it's Interactive Synergy. And what I do is not just build websites, but help people learn how to manage them themselves. So I'll take the time to learn your learning style so I can help you learn how to manage your website.
Great. Thank you, Linda. James.
Hi, I'm James McFadden here in sunny southern Utah, where we are now in the same time zone as Arizona finally. And really excited to be back. My concentration is on marketing systems, and I was looking forward to this topic because it wasn't necessarily a strength in the as far as background knowledge and perspective, but I learned a few things here today, and hopefully our listeners will learn a few things or get some insight that they haven't considered in the past, and that can help them in their day-to-day duties and goals and their needs. So it's great to be here, great to be with you together again, and I'm just looking forward to a great week as we build some momentum today. Thank you.
All right, James. Thank you. Thank you both. And, I can attest, because I work with both these people, not just on Monday Momentum, but on websites and other projects, and I know that James has helped me see the step-by-step, and Linda is helping me with the kinesthetic, working on actually doing things on my site, our new MyMondayMomentum.com site. So, yeah, they do what they say they do, and they're good at it. So go ahead and look them up if you are looking for help in those areas. So we are at MyMondayMomentum.com now. You can find all the replays and all of the information from our various guest speakers or products that sometimes we're talking about. So please go to the website and check it out and contact us. We want to know what you think. We want to know what you'd like to hear about. We want to know how you applied the stuff that we've talked about on the show every week. What are you using? How did it work for you? Please interact with us. And please go to our YouTube channel and like that as well, or subscribe. Someday I'll say that so easily it'll just slide off my tongue. This is Monday Momentum, your Momo. We're here every Monday morning for you. Next week we will be back live. And we will be here like we always are to help you get your week started off with a big dose of energy and information. We want to help you get started in the right direction, just like we want to help ourselves, so that we can slide into home base on Friday feeling really good about our week. You go rock and roll, go kick whatever, and have a great week, make some money, and we'll see you next Monday. Bye.
Happy Monday, Monday.